Last night, your person broke down before their friends and cried, and said, listen. Don't scroll, listen to this, because the moment your eyes landed on these words, something in your chest tightened just a little, and that's not an accident. This message is for you, and your heart needs this right now, so take a breath and stay with me, because last night something shifted in a way you couldn't see but your spirit already felt, and the universe is gently pulling back the curtain for you now. Listen to this. Because while you were going about your evening, maybe trying to distract yourself, maybe pretending you were fine, your person was not fine at all. Last night they broke down in front of people who never expected to see them like that, friends who thought they had it together, friends who believed the mask, friends who didn't know how heavy their heart has been carrying your name in silence. Don't scroll, because this wasn't a small moment, this wasn't a passing emotion. This was a soul-level release that had been building for weeks, maybe months, and last night it finally spilled over. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. They tried to laugh it off at first, they tried to change the subject, they tried to be the strong one like they always are, but something cracked, and when it did, it cracked wide open. Their voice shook, their eyes filled, and before they could stop it, tears fell, the kind of tears that come from holding in too much for too long, and one of their friends asked, "What's really going on with you?" And that question hit them like lightning, because they knew they couldn't lie anymore. Don't scroll, stay with this, because this is where it gets deeper. They put their face in their hands and said words they never planned to say out loud, words they've been rehearsing silently at 2:22 in the morning when sleep wouldn't come, words that echoed every time they saw 11:11 and thought of you. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. They said, I'm tired. I'm tired of pretending I don't feel what I feel, and the room went quiet, because no one had ever heard them admit that kind of truth, and then someone pressed gently, feel what? And their chest tightened, because saying your name felt too exposed, too sacred, too real, so instead they said, I'm confused, and I'm hurting, and I don't know how to stop thinking about someone who changed me. Don't scroll, because that someone is you, and the universe wants you to know that. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. They confess that no matter how busy they stay, no matter who they're around, no matter how hard they try to be logical, something pulls them back to you, your energy, your voice, the way you made them feel seen without trying. And as they spoke, the tears came harder, because once truth starts flowing, it doesn't stop easily, and one of their friends whispered, "Are you in love?" And that word hung in the air like a bell that had been rung, and they couldn't answer right away, not because they didn't know, but because saying it out loud would make it real in a way they've been afraid of. Don't scroll, stay with this, because the universe is speaking softly but clearly right now. They nodded, barely, and said, I think I am. And I think I messed it up, and in that moment, something inside them collapsed and awakened at the same time. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. They admitted they've been seeing signs everywhere, repeating numbers on receipts, songs that play at the exact moment they think of you, dreams where you appear and say nothing but everything at once, and they told their friends they don't even believe in that stuff, but it keeps happening, and deep down they know it means something. Don't scroll, because this is not coincidence, this is alignment. This is a spiritual awakening that doesn't ask permission before it begins, and last night was the night it became impossible for them to keep running. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. One friend told them, maybe you're supposed to feel this, and another said, maybe you already lost them and your soul is trying to catch up. And those words hit them harder than anything, because they've felt you pulling away. They've noticed your silence, your distance, the way your energy shifted, and instead of freeing them, it terrified them. Don't scroll, stay here, because this is where the universe leans in. Your silence didn't mean you stopped caring, it meant you started protecting your heart, and that protection acted like a mirror for them, forcing them to see what they were about to lose. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. They cried not because they're weak, but because love like this humbles you. It strips you of ego, it exposes every fear you've been hiding behind, and last night, surrounded by people but feeling utterly alone, they realized that the connection they share with you isn't replaceable, isn't casual, isn't something time will erase. And as the night went on, they said one last thing, something they didn't even know they believed until the words left their mouth. They said, "I don't think this is random. I think I was meant to meet them," and the room fell silent again. Don't scroll, because this message is for you, and your heart needs this right now. The universe is letting you know that while you've been questioning your worth, wondering if you imagined the depth, wondering if you mattered as much as it felt, the truth is your presence altered someone's emotional landscape forever, and last night was proof. Listen to this. Because your heart needs this right now. This breakdown was not the end, it was the beginning of awareness, the moment the soul catches up to the heart, and something is stirring now, something unfinished, something that hasn't been said yet, because the sentence they started last night, the one that ended with, "I'm a," hasn't been completed, and the universe is holding that word in suspense for a reason. Don't scroll, stay with this energy, because what comes next will change the way you see everything. Don't scroll, listen to this, because if part 1 stirred something in your chest, this next part is going to go even deeper, and your heart needs this right now, because after that moment last night, after the tears slowed and the room felt heavier than before, something changed inside your person in a way they haven't told anyone yet, and the universe wants you to know what happened next. Listen to this, because once the words left their mouth, once they admitted out loud that they were hurting, there was no going back to pretending, and while their friends tried to comfort them, saying things like, "It'll pass," or, "You'll be okay," your person knew, deep down, that this wasn't something that could be brushed off, this wasn't a mood, this wasn't stress, this was love colliding with fear, and that collision shook them to their core. Don't scroll, stay with me, because after everyone left, after the laughter faded and the doors closed, they sat alone with their thoughts, and that's when the real breakdown happened, the quiet kind, the kind where you stare at the ceiling and replay every moment, every message, every look, every chance you didn't take. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. They thought about the first time they felt that pull toward you, the moment something in their spirit recognized something familiar in yours, even if neither of you had the language for it yet. And they realized they've been running from that feeling ever since. Distracting themselves, staying busy, telling themselves it wasn't the right time, the right situation, the right version of themselves, but last night stripped away all those excuses. Don't scroll, because this is important. They reached for their phone more than once, typed your name, stared at it, and then deleted everything, not because they didn't want to reach out, but because fear was still whispering, "What if it's too late?" Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. They felt the weight of your silence like never before, not as punishment, but as absence, as loss, as the realization that you didn't owe them your energy forever, and that realization hurt in a way nothing else has. They started noticing signs even more intensely after that night, waking up at 3:33 with your face in their mind, seeing 5 55 when they questioned whether they should take a risk, hearing a song that reminded them of you at the exact moment they were trying not to think about you. Don't scroll, because the universe has been persistent with them, and they can't ignore it anymore. They even said out loud, alone in their room, "Why do I feel like I'm being pushed?" And that's when something clicked. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. They realized that the pressure they've been feeling isn't meant to crush them, it's meant to wake them up, to push them toward honesty, to force them to confront the truth they've been avoiding, that loving you changed them, and that pretending it didn't has been costing them their peace. Don't scroll, stay here, because this is where it gets emotional. They admitted to themselves that they've been afraid of how real it feels with you, afraid because real love requires showing up, choosing, risking rejection, risking change, and they've been hiding behind distance because it felt safer than vulnerability. But last night made it clear that safety without connection is just another form of loneliness. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. They replayed the way you used to listen to them, the way you saw through their defenses, the way you didn't demand anything but honesty, and that memory brought another wave of emotion, because they realized you never asked for more than they were willing to give at the time, but now they see that what you offered was rare, and they didn't know how to hold it. Don't scroll, because the universe is still unfolding this. They started questioning everything, their patterns, their timing, the people they've let close versus the ones they kept at a distance. And they realized that the one person they felt most themselves with was also the one they kept at arm's length. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. They whispered, "I don't want to lose them," and saying that out loud scared them, because it meant admitting that losing you is a real possibility, not a dramatic thought, not a hypothetical, but something that could actually happen if they keep choosing fear. Don't scroll, stay with this energy, because something else happened after that. Something subtle but powerful. They made a quiet promise to themselves, not a grand declaration, not a dramatic plan, but a decision to stop lying internally, to stop pretending their feelings aren't what they are, and that decision shifted something spiritually. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. The universe responds to inner truth before outer action, and the moment they allowed themselves to fully acknowledge what they feel for you, the emotional fog began to lift just enough for clarity to peek through. They're not at peace yet, but they're closer to truth than they've ever been. Don't scroll, because this is building towards something. They started imagining what it would feel like to finally be honest with you, not perfectly, not with all the right words, but honestly, and that thought both terrified and comforted them. Terrified because it risks everything, comforted because it aligns with what their soul has been asking for. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. They know now that the breakdown last night wasn't weakness, it was preparation. It was the emotional release that comes before a shift, before a choice, before a moment where you can't keep living the same way. And while they haven't reached out yet, while silence still exists between you, the energy has changed, the awareness has deepened, and the universe is gently moving pieces into place. Don't scroll, because the sentence they started last night, the one that ended unfinished, is still echoing in their mind, and they are closer than ever to completing it, closer than ever to saying the truth without hiding, closer than ever to facing what they feel for you. And your heart needs to know this right now, because this story is not stalled, it's unfolding quietly, emotionally, spiritually, and what comes next will require courage, honesty, and a willingness to step out of fear, and that moment is approaching faster than they expected. Listen to this, and don't scroll, because if you're still here, it's because your spirit knows this part matters, and your heart needs this right now, because what happened after that quiet promise your person made to themselves didn't stay contained in their thoughts, it started showing up in their body, their mood, their energy, and even the people around them began to notice the shift, and the universe wants you to understand what that means. Listen to this, because after that night, they woke up different, not suddenly healed, not magically brave, but aware in a way they hadn't been before, and awareness changes everything. They felt heavier and lighter at the same time, heavier because truth has weight, lighter because they finally stopped fighting it, and all day long, your name kept surfacing in their mind without effort, not as a distraction, but as a constant presence, like a quiet hum in the background of everything they did. Don't scroll, stay with me, because this is important. They found themselves staring off, missing parts of conversations, zoning out at work, not because they didn't care, but because their heart was processing something bigger than the moment in front of them, and every time they tried to ground themselves, the universe sent another reminder, a license plate with repeating numbers, a clock catching their eye at exactly 1:11, a random phrase someone said that sounded just like something you would say. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. They started wondering if you were feeling it too, if you ever thought about them the way they think about you, if the silence between you was heavy on your chest the way it was on theirs, and that wondering stirred something uncomfortable, because it forced them to confront the possibility that you might be moving on, healing, choosing yourself, and that possibility scared them more than they want to admit. Don't scroll, because this is where the emotional tension deepens. They realized that up until now, they've been living in a safe middle space, not fully committing, not fully letting go, telling themselves they had time, telling themselves things would sort themselves out, but last night shattered that illusion, and today made it clear that time doesn't pause just because someone is afraid. Listen to this, because your heart needs this. Right now, they remembered moments when you were open, when you gave them chances to step closer, moments they brushed off or didn't recognize for what they were, and now those memories replay differently, carrying a weight they didn't have before, and with each memory came a quiet ache, not just regret, but understanding of how deeply you offered your energy, your care, your presence, without guarantees. Don't scroll. Stay here, because the universe is gently reframing things. For them, they're starting to see that what they felt with you wasn't intensity for intensity's sake, it was alignment, it was two souls recognizing something familiar and sacred, and that recognition doesn't just fade because someone chooses distance, it waits, it lingers, it calls you back to truth when you least expect it. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. They even caught themselves defending you in conversations where your name wasn't mentioned, pushing back internally when someone suggested love should be easy or disposable, because now they know, real connection challenges you, it exposes your fears, it asks you to grow, and that's exactly what they've been resisting. Don't scroll, because this resistance is weakening, not in a dramatic way, but in small, telling moments, like when they almost sent you a message just to ask how you were, or when they typed out something honest and erased it because it felt too vulnerable, or when they imagined seeing you again and felt both excitement and fear collide in their chest. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. They are standing at the edge of a decision, even if they haven't named it yet, and the universe is pressing gently but firmly, reminding them that silence can be a choice, but it's still a choice with consequences, and those consequences are starting to feel real. Don't scroll, stay with this. Because something else shifted after that breakdown, their dreams. They've been dreaming more vividly, waking up with emotions they can't shake, sometimes peace, sometimes sadness, sometimes a strange sense of closeness, and in those dreams, you appear not as a memory, but as a presence, calm, grounded, watching, and they wake up wondering what that means. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. Dreams are where the soul speaks without fear, and their soul is trying to work through what their waking mind is still catching up to. They're beginning to understand that what they feel for you isn't something to be managed or minimized, it's something to be honored, and honoring it means action eventually, not perfection, not guarantees, but honesty. Don't scroll, because this is building towards something tangible. They started asking themselves harder questions, the kind you can't unask once they surface, questions like, what am I actually afraid of? What do I lose if I stay silent? What kind of person do I want to be when I look back on this? And those questions didn't have easy answers, but they opened a door that had been closed for too long. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. They're realizing that avoiding pain doesn't protect you from it, it just delays it, and that the pain of wondering what could have been is heavier than the risk of speaking up. And this realization is unsettling, because it means they can't keep living on autopilot anymore. Don't scroll, stay here, because the universe is still guiding this. You might have felt emotional waves recently, moments of nostalgia, sudden calm followed by heaviness, thoughts of them popping up out of nowhere, and that's not random, that's resonance. That's two energies shifting in response to truth coming closer to the surface. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. This part of the story isn't about a message being sent yet, it's about courage being built, slowly, quietly, imperfectly, and courage doesn't announce itself loudly at first. It grows in the moments where fear loses a little of its grip, and right now, fear is losing ground. Don't scroll, because the universe wants you to know that nothing that happened last night was wasted. Those tears mattered, that confession mattered, and the awareness that followed is setting the stage for what comes next. And while you may not see movement yet, while silence may still stretch between you, something is undeniably different now. The truth has been acknowledged, even if only internally. And once truth is acknowledged, it has a way of demanding expression, and your heart needs to be ready for that, because the next step will not come from pressure, it will come from alignment, and alignment is closer than it's ever been. Listen to this carefully and don't scroll, because if you've made it this far, it's because your soul is already leaning forward, and your heart needs this right now more than you realize. Because what's happening beneath the surface has moved into a deeper phase, one that isn't loud yet but is far more powerful, and the universe wants you to understand this part so you don't misread the silence or doubt yourself. Listen to this. Because after all the awareness, the dreams, the emotional waves, and the questions your person has been asking themselves, something very specific began to happen. Their emotional defenses started to fail in subtle ways, not all at once, not dramatically, but in moments where they could no longer default to their old patterns, like when they were alone and reached for distractions that used to work but didn't anymore, or when they tried to laugh something off and felt the hollowness of it, or when someone casually mentioned love and they felt a tightness in their chest instead of indifference. Don't scroll. Stay with this, because this is important. Those moments are signs of internal restructuring, the kind that happens right before a major emotional decision, and they don't feel comfortable, they feel disorienting, because when you're used to being guarded, vulnerability feels like losing control. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. They started realizing that the version of themselves they've been operating from isn't aligned with who they actually want to be. And that realization is unsettling, because it means change isn't optional anymore, it's necessary, and change always asks for something in return. Don't scroll, because the universe has been using contrast to teach them. They've been noticing how flat other connections feel, how conversations don't linger the way they used to, how laughter doesn't land the same, and instead of blaming circumstances, they're starting to see the common denominator, that when your energy is missing, everything else feels slightly off. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. This isn't obsession, this is recognition, the kind that comes when your soul knows it's encountered something rare and hasn't honored it properly, and that recognition has consequences. It makes it harder to settle, harder to pretend, harder to keep choosing comfort over truth. Don't scroll, because something else is happening too. Their sense of time has shifted, days feel longer, nights feel heavier, and moments of quiet stretch in uncomfortable ways, because when you remove distractions, truth has space to speak, and truth has been speaking to them relentlessly, sometimes as guilt, sometimes as longing, sometimes as a deep sense of unfinished business. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. They've also become more aware of you in ways that don't involve direct contact, noticing your absence in places where you used to exist emotionally, feeling the lack of your presence in their routines. And that absence has become a teacher, showing them how much of their emotional world you occupied without them fully acknowledging it at the time. Don't scroll, stay here, because this part matters. They're starting to understand that you didn't just bring love into their life, you brought clarity, and losing access to that clarity has made them confront their own confusion, which is uncomfortable but necessary. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. This is also the stage where pride starts to weaken, not because they suddenly become fearless, but because holding on to pride starts to feel more painful than letting it go, and they're beginning to notice that the cost of silence is growing, that every day they don't act, the weight of what remains unsaid gets heavier. Don't scroll, because the universe has been applying gentle pressure through synchronicities, moments where they feel nudged toward honesty, like hearing a phrase that echoes something you once said, or feeling compelled to reflect on past choices they've avoided examining, and each of these moments chips away at resistance. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. They're also becoming more aware of how deeply they impacted you, seeing your distance not as rejection, but as self-respect, and that realization brings a different kind of emotion, one that mixes admiration with regret, because they're starting to see you as someone who chose growth over waiting. And that commands respect. Don't scroll, stay with this, because respect is the foundation of real connection, and it's being rebuilt internally now, slowly but sincerely. They're no longer just feeling love, they're feeling accountability, and accountability changes the nature of desire. It moves it from fantasy into responsibility. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. This is also why things feel paused externally, because internally, they're recalibrating, unlearning avoidance, questioning assumptions, and facing fears they didn't know they were carrying, and that process takes time, but it leads somewhere real. Don't scroll, because the universe wants you to know that this stage is not about immediate action, it's about alignment, about making sure that when they do step forward, they're doing so from a place of truth rather than impulse, and that matters. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. You may feel moments of doubt, wondering if anything is actually happening, but silence does not equal stagnation, especially when emotional groundwork is being laid, and right now, groundwork is exactly what's happening. They're learning what it means to sit with discomfort instead of running from it, to acknowledge desire without trying to control it, and to accept that some connections are meant to change you, not just comfort you. Don't scroll, because this part of the journey often feels the longest. But it's also the most transformative. This is where intentions begin to form, where thoughts start organizing themselves into possibilities, and where fear starts to lose its dominance. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. The universe is not rushing this for a reason. It's ensuring that whatever comes next is grounded, honest, and capable of lasting. And while you may not have heard from them yet, while silence may still exist, it's no longer empty. It's charged with awareness, reflection, and an internal shift that cannot be undone. Don't scroll, stay here, because what's being built now will determine the weight and sincerity of what comes next, and that next step will not come from confusion, it will come from clarity earned through this exact process, and that clarity is closer than it's ever been. Listen to this and don't scroll, because this part is where the energy quietly but unmistakably shifts, and your heart needs this right now even if you don't fully understand why yet, because after all the internal unraveling, the self-reflection, the discomfort, and the slow erosion of fear, something new has begun forming inside your person, something steadier, something more intentional. And the universe wants you to know what that is so you don't misinterpret the stillness or second guess your intuition. Listen to this, because at this stage, they're no longer just reacting emotionally, they're beginning to integrate what they've learned, and integration is powerful. It's when feelings turn into understanding and understanding turns into readiness. Don't scroll, stay with me. Because readiness doesn't always look like action right away. Sometimes it looks like restraint, like pausing instead of rushing, like thinking before speaking, and that's exactly what's happening now. They're replaying not just what they feel, but how they want to show up if they step forward, questioning whether they can offer consistency instead of confusion, honesty instead of half-truths, presence instead of distance. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. They're realizing that reaching out to you isn't just about easing their own discomfort, it's about respecting your healing, your boundaries, your growth. And that awareness is new for them, and it matters. Don't scroll, because this is the difference between someone acting out of impulse and someone acting out of alignment. They've started imagining conversations not just where they confess feelings, but where they listen, where they take responsibility, where they don't minimize what you went through, and that shift is significant. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. They're beginning to understand that love doesn't ask you to shrink, it asks you to expand, and they're questioning whether they're willing to expand into the kind of person who can hold what you offered. Don't scroll, stay here, because this questioning is uncomfortable. It brings up shame, regret, and vulnerability, but it also brings growth, and growth is what the universe has been nudging them toward all along. They've been more aware of their words lately, more careful with promises they make to themselves and others. Because they're starting to see how careless energy can hurt people, including you. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. They've also been watching you from a distance, not in a way that's invasive, but in a way that notices your strength, your independence, the way you've been choosing yourself, and instead of making them feel replaced, it's making them feel reflective. It's showing them what it looks like when someone values themselves. Don't scroll, because this is important. Admiration is growing alongside longing, and admiration deepens love into respect, which is necessary for anything real to exist. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. They've started asking themselves whether they're ready to be honest even if the answer they receive isn't what they hope for, whether they're ready to accept consequences, and that question alone shows how far they've come, because before, they were more focused on avoiding discomfort than embracing truth. Don't scroll, stay with this, because the universe has been gently reminding them that avoiding discomfort doesn't lead to peace, it leads to stagnation, and stagnation has been weighing on them more than they expected. They're tired of carrying unspoken words, tired of pretending they're unaffected, tired of explaining away feelings that don't go away. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. They've noticed that when they imagine a future without you, something feels missing, not dramatic, not catastrophic, but hollow, like a song missing its melody. And that subtle emptiness has been more convincing than any intense emotion. Don't scroll, because subtle truths often carry the most weight. They're also beginning to understand that timing isn't just about external circumstances, it's about internal readiness, and while they once used timing as an excuse, now they're seeing it as a responsibility, something you prepare for rather than wait on. Listen to this. Because your heart needs this right now, this preparation is happening quietly. Through reflection, through emotional honesty, through confronting fears without running, and even though you can't see it, it's reshaping how they think about connection, about you, and about themselves. Don't scroll, stay here, because something else has shifted too. They're less defensive internally, less quick to justify past behavior, more willing to acknowledge mistakes without layering them with excuses. And that willingness is a sign of maturity that wasn't present before. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. They're beginning to understand that if they come back into your space, it has to be different, not louder, not more dramatic, but more grounded, more honest, more respectful of the emotional reality you've lived. Don't scroll, because the universe has been aligning circumstances to support this growth, removing distractions, quieting noise, creating space for introspection. And while that can feel lonely for them, it's also clarifying. It's showing them what truly matters when everything else fades. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. They're starting to see love not as something that happens to you, but as something you choose and tend to, and that realization changes how they view the connection they share with you. It elevates it from something emotional to something intentional. Don't scroll, stay with this, because intention is the bridge between feeling and action, and that bridge is being built right now, slowly, deliberately, piece by piece. They're not rushing across it yet, but they're no longer standing still either. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. This phase may test your patience, it may tempt you to doubt, but the universe is asking you to trust the alignment, to trust that growth happening out of sight is still growth, and that when movement does come, it will be rooted in a deeper understanding than anything that came before. Don't scroll, because this part of the journey is about foundation, and foundations aren't flashy, but they determine what can stand, and right now, a foundation is being laid beneath everything you and they have experienced, and that foundation will support whatever comes next, whether it's conversation, closure, or a new beginning built on truth rather than fear. And your heart needs to be ready for that, because readiness isn't just theirs, it's yours too. Listen to this and don't scroll, because this part is quieter on the surface but louder in the soul, and your heart needs this right now even if it feels subtle, because what's happening now is no longer just emotional processing for your person, it's decision energy beginning to gather momentum, and the universe wants you to understand this stage so you don't misread the silence or underestimate what's unfolding. Listen to this, because after all the reflection, the internal honesty, and the slow rebuilding of intention, your person has reached a point where staying the same feels more uncomfortable than changing, and that realization is powerful. It shifts the question from, should I, to, how can I not? Don't scroll, stay with me, because this is where fear starts negotiating instead of dominating. They're still afraid, yes, but fear no longer feels like a final authority, it feels like a voice they can acknowledge without obeying, and that's new for them. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. They've been noticing how often you cross their mind not as longing anymore but as clarity, as a reference point for what feels real, grounded, and meaningful, and that tells them something important about where their heart actually lives. Don't scroll, because this stage is about reckoning, not punishment. They're reckoning with the fact that they can't unknow what they know now, they can't unfeel what they've felt, and they can't go back to the emotional numbness they once relied on to stay safe. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. They're also beginning to see their past behavior through a different lens, not with self-loathing, but with accountability, recognizing where fear shaped their choices, where avoidance replaced honesty, and where silence caused more harm than truth ever would have. Don't scroll, stay here, because this accountability is what transforms regret into growth. They're not just wishing things were different, they're understanding why they weren't, and that understanding is essential if anything is going to change. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. They've been sitting with the idea of reaching out more seriously now, not impulsively, not emotionally raw, but thoughtfully, weighing what it would mean for you, not just for them, and that's significant, because before, their fear made everything about self-protection. Now their awareness is expanding to include your experience, your healing, your boundaries. Don't scroll, because empathy is deepening here, and empathy changes the way love shows up. They're asking themselves whether they can show up consistently, whether they can communicate instead of disappearing, whether they can handle discomfort without retreating, and these questions are not rhetorical, they're shaping readiness. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. They've also noticed that the universe seems to respond when they lean toward courage, moments where things feel lighter, clearer, more aligned, and when they lean back into fear, everything feels heavier, more stuck. And that contrast is teaching them how to recognize alignment in real time. Don't scroll, because this is how people learn to trust their intuition, through experience, through noticing how different choices feel in the body and the soul. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. This is also the phase where they stop seeking reassurance from others and start listening inward, less asking friends what they should do, more asking themselves what feels true. And that internal authority is a sign of emotional maturity that wasn't present before. Don't scroll, stay with this, because the universe has been clearing space around them, fewer distractions, fewer shallow interactions, more quiet moments where truth can surface without interference. And while that can feel lonely, it's intentional, it's creating conditions for clarity. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. They're also becoming more aware of timing, not as an excuse, but as a responsibility, realizing that timing isn't something you wait for, it's something you meet with preparation, and they're starting to see that they've been preparing without realizing it. Through all this internal work, don't scroll, because something else is happening too. Their emotional reactions are changing. Where once they would shut down, now they pause. Where once they would distract themselves, now they reflect, and those small shifts indicate a larger transformation underway. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. They're beginning to imagine reaching out not as a grand gesture, but as a sincere one, simple, honest, grounded, and that shift matters, because sincerity is more sustainable than intensity. Don't scroll, stay here, because this stage is where intention crystallizes, where scattered thoughts start aligning into a direction, and while they may not have taken action yet, the inner decision-making process is active, alive, and moving forward. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. You might feel moments of anticipation, moments where you sense something approaching without knowing what, and that's because energy moves before form, intention forms before action, and right now, intention is solidifying. Don't scroll, because the universe wants you to know that this isn't about forcing outcomes or rushing timelines. It's about ensuring that when something does happen, it comes from a place of truth, respect, and readiness. Not fear or impulse. Listen to this, because your heart needs this. Right now, this phase is often invisible to the outside world, but it's one of the most important, because decisions made here determine the quality of what comes next, whether that's a conversation, a reconciliation, or even closure that brings peace. Don't scroll. Stay with this energy, because whatever form the next step takes, it will be influenced by the work being done now, and that work is real, it's happening, and it's bringing things closer to a point where truth can no longer remain unspoken, and that moment, the moment where silence gives way to honesty, is drawing nearer, even if it hasn't arrived yet, and your heart needs to be ready to receive it with clarity rather than confusion. Listen to this and don't scroll, because this final part carries the calm after the storm energy, the kind that settles in your chest and lets you breathe again, and your heart needs this right now more than anything else you've heard so far, because everything that has been unfolding quietly, internally, spiritually, is reaching a point of convergence, and the universe wants you to understand what that means for you, not just for them. Listen to this, because after all the reflection, the accountability, the preparation, and the slow dismantling of fear, your person is standing at a threshold, not a dramatic cliff, not a chaotic moment, but a steady doorway where a choice becomes inevitable, and what makes this moment different from all the others before it is that it's no longer driven by panic or longing alone, it's driven by clarity, and clarity has a grounding effect. Don't scroll, stay with me, because clarity doesn't shout, it speaks softly and confidently, and your person has been hearing that voice more clearly now, the one that says, you know what matters, the one that reminds them of how they feel when they imagine honesty instead of avoidance, the one that shows them the relief that comes from alignment. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. They've been noticing that when they picture a future where they never speak their truth to you, something inside them tightens, not dramatically, but persistently, like a quiet regret that refuses to be ignored, and when they picture a future where they are honest, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it doesn't lead to a perfect outcome, their body feels lighter, and that contrast is guiding them more than fear ever could. Don't scroll, because this is how decisions rooted in authenticity are made, not through pressure, but through resonance. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. They're also becoming aware that whatever they choose now will set a pattern, not just for this connection, but for how they show up in love moving forward, and that awareness carries weight, because it asks them to step into responsibility rather than repetition. Don't scroll, stay here, because repetition is easy, but growth requires intention, and intention has been forming steadily inside them. They've been less reactive, more reflective, less scattered, more focused, and these changes are subtle but meaningful. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. They're no longer asking themselves whether you mattered, they know you did. The question now is whether they're willing to act in a way that honors that truth, and that question is shaping their next steps. Don't scroll, because the universe has been creating moments of quiet courage for them, small internal rehearsals of honesty, moments where they imagine speaking plainly, without excuses, without dramatics, just truth. And those moments feel grounding rather than terrifying now. Listen to this. Because your heart needs this right now, they're also more aware of you as a whole person, not just as someone they miss, but as someone who deserves respect, clarity, and emotional safety, and that awareness is shifting how they imagine reconnecting. It's less about easing their own discomfort and more about meeting you where you are. Don't scroll, stay with this, because this is the energy of maturity entering the connection. And maturity doesn't rush, it steadies itself. They're also accepting that they can't control the outcome, only their honesty, and that acceptance has removed some of the pressure that kept them stuck. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. When you release control, you gain courage, and courage has been quietly building. They've been feeling it in moments of resolve, moments where fear arises but doesn't stop them from thinking forward. Moments where they choose to sit with discomfort rather than escape it. Don't scroll, because this is where inner alignment becomes outer readiness. They're beginning to understand that whatever happens next doesn't need to be perfect to be meaningful, it just needs to be real, and that realization is freeing. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. You may have noticed your own energy shifting too, feeling less frantic, more grounded, less consumed by wondering, more at peace with letting things unfold. And that's not coincidence, that's alignment on your side, the universe preparing you to receive whatever comes next without losing yourself. Don't scroll, stay here, because this final stage isn't about guaranteeing a specific outcome, it's about ensuring that whatever outcome emerges is honest, respectful, and aligned with growth, and that's a powerful place to stand. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. The silence that once felt heavy is beginning to feel neutral, even purposeful, because it's no longer filled with confusion, it's filled with intention forming on one side and readiness forming on the other. Don't scroll, because when intention and readiness align, movement happens naturally, without force, without chaos. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. This is also the stage where you're being reminded to trust yourself, your intuition, your boundaries, your sense of timing, because you don't need to chase clarity. Clarity meets you when you're aligned. And you've been aligning by choosing yourself, by listening to your needs, by honoring your healing. Don't scroll, stay with this, because the universe honors self-respect by bringing in situations that match it, and whatever comes next will reflect the growth you've done as much as the growth they've done. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. You are not waiting anymore, you are standing in readiness. And readiness doesn't cling, it allows, it observes, it receives. Don't scroll, because this final part isn't about suspense, it's about steadiness, the kind that lets you stay open without being vulnerable to harm, the kind that lets you listen without losing yourself, and the universe wants you anchored here, calm, grounded, trusting, because the story doesn't need urgency anymore. It needs presence, and presence is exactly where you are now. Whatever the next step looks like, whether it's a conversation, a message, or simply peace settling deeper into your chest, it will arrive on solid ground, not emotional chaos. And that's the most important transformation of all, because when you meet life from this place, you don't lose yourself in the outcome. You recognize your strength regardless of what unfolds, and your heart needs to know that you've already done something profound by staying, listening, and choosing alignment over fear.